Okay, so welcome to day 4, and this is our 8th session of the MYMOON Power Musings. So thank you so much for joining this far. I can't believe that we're 8 sessions in. It's amazing. This is our last day of this particular gathering. And tonight, this evening, we're joined by the incredible, amazing Rebeka Shaman. So I'm so excited for this conversation. Rebeka is a dear, dear friend and dear sister, and I can't even speak then. And Rebeka, you are so supportive. Like anytime that I have needed anything, like you are so there, and this has always given me a card reading when I'm in like a really like difficult situation. And just deeply supportive, and like you for me like really holds the codes. Oh my god, I feel like I'm gonna cry. Like the codes of like true sisterhood, like I like as in like you're there when in those times and when you're most needed. So I really appreciate you so much, and I love all of the work that you put out into the world. You're just such a powerhouse on so many huge levels. And there's so many different directions that we could go in this conversation because you do so many things and it's so and I think like to keep it like focused on the menstrual cycle and women's health. I feel like a good question to begin with for you is like, I know that you hold the womb cacao ceremony. So how did you get into that? Like, what was your transition into like your life and like in like female work?
Well, I suppose that the work that I do attracts women more than it attracts men, just naturally. And I think because I started a long time ago, men were still not quite sure where they fitted in the kind of spiritual scene, because I've been doing this for so many years. So I've been quite used to working pretty much with women. But when I found cacao I really felt was a female medicine. And in the plant medicine world, it is dominated by men. The ayahuasca discourse has been dominated by men. I've seen the iboga discourse being very dominated by men. But actually, ayahuasca is a female plant medicine, and I feel like she hasn't got that space and in the Shipibo cultures, it's very much the women who hold the medicine. But even in the Amazon, they're not so recognized as the men. And so I also think that we kind of have this kind of cultural understanding that the men are the gurus or the spiritual leaders, but there's not enough female spiritual leaders out there that are kind of holding space in a global sense. So we're much more used to seeing a man in a leadership role or a man in a power role. And when we see a woman, actually it's quite difficult to, number one, have men come to women who are in leadership roles, but also women seeing another woman in a leadership role. Sometimes that was quite an unusual thing in the past. Now we're seeing much more women standing up in leadership roles. But when I came across cacao for me is a feminine plant medicine that I feel is really needed in the West, and can really be used in the West, and is also it's a legal plant medicine, but also is fantastic for women in the physical, mental, and emotional benefits that she brings, specifically around the menstruation, selenium, very high in selenium, magnesium, irons, flavonoids. So when you're having a heavy bleed, drinking cacao can really help. When you're pregnant, cacao can really help. When you're breastfeeding, cacao can really help. For me, in every cycle of a women's journey, cacao is a fantastic plant medicine to support us. And so when I started doing my trainings, cacao kind of said, I want you to make this a female only training. I want you to just train women, because women need to feel like they own something, some modality that isn't being kind of usurped by men. And so for me, cacao felt very much it should be women's space. Not so much to the circles, because the medicine's for everybody, but I certainly feel like as practitioners or as servers of the cacao, that women are here to offer the cacao in that feminine way. I think that's how cacao needs to be offered. So I feel very much that the cacao is a female plant medicine for a female space, and actually we really could own this plant medicine much more, and actually to see more women kind of stepping into their power with cacao. And so for me, that's how it felt very like when men were contacting me to do cacaoista training, it didn't feel right. It felt right that I kept it all female. And actually, I've only trained one man and 50 women in cacaoista training. But the man, it was when he came on, and actually I've known him for a very long time, and he was a very good friend of mine. It was after that, it was like, okay, so you've got the honorary man, but now it's just women. So now I make it a women's only. And the womb ceremonies just evolved because she's just so amazing to communicate with our wombs in all the phases of the journey that we have. She is really a powerful medicine. So when I work with the womb, when I do my women's only cacao ceremonies, really they're off the charts. They are really amazing. And I think it's something about women coming together in a women's only group and really feeling in that safe space. And cacao is a very loving medicine within that safe space to serve, and to actually for us to go together and journey together as women. So for me, working cacao and women are interconnected. And I certainly feel that that's why I'm very focused specifically on in this with women. And with my other plant medicines and ayahuasca and stuff, it's not like that. But now, interestingly, in ayahuasca, I only work with women shaman. So that's been a big shift as well, because again, there's something special about working with women and plant medicines. They just bring in a level of consciousness that, and I think it's the ego thing, actually, because when women come in and do it, they're doing it from a purely service space. They want to serve. We feel good when we serve. We feel good when we're honoring somebody else, when we're serving them, when we're helping them. I think men kind of do it, but there's an ego attached to it, like I'm the shaman, I'm the server of the medicine. So they don't, it's a slightly different way of looking at it, but it's there, but it's so subtle. And having worked with both men and women, it's no longer subtle to me. It's so obvious that for me, I feel much more, I feel in a much more of a healing space when I'm actually working with a Shipibo shaman, a female Shipibo shaman, and likewise when I do my cacaoista training, when I'm working with the women, I feel that we're in it together to serve the medicine, not because it's going to give us some power trip. And I think that is why I feel so strongly about it.
Wow, fascinating. So the first time I met Rebeka really was actually in your cacao ceremony. It was like years and years and years ago, and I've been to like a few cacao ceremonies before, but I always felt like, oh, I just feel like I'm not really feeling the real thing. And then I went to Rebeka's and I was like, oh God, this is the real deal. Like, heart cracked open. I was like the person sobbing hysterically in the room. Yeah,
love that.
and then Rebeka, so you're like within your cycle at the moment, like you're in your perimenopause. Like, how has that journey been for you?
It was a big shock. I wasn't expecting it at all, ladies. I'm telling you, I really thought started very late. My period started very late. Like when I didn't wear my first bra until I was 14, and I didn't have my period until I had a bleed when I was 14, and I didn't really start my periods properly until I was 15. So I was an incredibly late developer. And I think it was a lot of it also was very frightened of my sexuality, of and blossoming, and for some personal reasons. So actually, for me, getting the period was a big shock. So once they came, for a while, I saw them as the curse, like we did when you were younger and all of that. But then obviously working much more with the women's bodies and learning about it. And I got my first moon cup in 2003, and that was a game changer for me, using the moon cup. So no more tampons, using a moon cup, collecting the blood every month, ritualizing the blood. That for me put me totally in tune with my body, and also made me very aware of when my periods were starting, when they were ending, how it was working, what the blood looked like how am I bleeding? So getting really in tune with the flow of the blood, the color of the blood. So I actually it was kind of like an adventure to do it. And then I had this very interesting situation where I was at Burning Man, and I had lost everything. Basically, I'd gone bankrupt with hemp. I'd lost my relationship, and I was I'd gone out for a year to go traveling, and I found myself at Burning Man. Where else would you go when you're in total disarray and your whole life's completely blown up? But kind of Burning Man calls you, of course. And I got there, and I got connected with Shaman Dome while I was there, and I started working there as a kind of visiting shaman, so to speak. And one of the days there was a tantra, women's only tantra workshop, and it was actually in the brochure, and all the women in Shaman Dome wanted to do this particular tantra workshop because it was the one in the brochure, it was the one promoting Shaman Dome, and obviously, you know, it was the one that you were going to be in women's only. It was like a really big thing. And he hadn't chosen who was going to do it, so actually no one knew what was happening. He was really chaotic, the head shaman, like totally all over the place, really shamanic, basically. Chaotic in the most shamanic way. Anyway, I got there at 12 to do a Find Your Power Animal workshop, and I said to him, I came up to him and I said, look, I have to be honest with you, I'm really not feeling this Find Your Power Animal workshop. And he went, you have to do this tantra shaman workshop, it's you. And I said, me? No way. Like, I've never done a workshop before, I've never done tantra. He said, you're the true dakini in this whole group. I see you, you're doing it. Are you going to take the challenge? And I thought, Burning Man, what have I got to lose? I'm in. So so I thought, oh my God, I've got 2 hours to prepare. I have not a clue. Never done a workshop, because prior to me going bankrupt, I'd been working in hemp. And prior to that, I'd been working the corporate world. I didn't know a workshop. Find Your Power Animal was, okay, I could get that one. This was huge. Anyway, I went down to the playa and I just sat in meditation and I spoke to the goddess and I said, what do I do? And I got this download saying, it's all in you. It's all in you. You just have to surrender and let the goddess talk through you. You know, we, as a woman, you have all the codes within you, all the reason, you know how to relate. You just have never had the opportunity to put it out there. So this is your opportunity. Just go there and trust the goddess. So I turn up and the queue is like so long, and I literally have like a mental breakdown, and I think, oh my God, I never held space really. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm trusting the goddess. And it was amazing. It was really amazing. And we did some amazing things. And I was horrified by how many women were calling their periods a curse. How many, like this one woman, we went round to talk, everyone talked, and I said, so one woman said, oh, I'm so lucky, I haven't had a period for 1.5 years. And I said, that's not lucky. That means that something is seriously not, you're not in tune with your body, you've disconnected. You know, our periods, our menstruation keeps us in tune with ourselves, in tune with the moon, in tune with the natural flows of life. Not having your period is actually your body saying that something isn't in alignment. And I realized as I was going around these women, how disconnected we have become to our wombs, to our femininity, to our dakini essence, so to speak. And I think he chose me because I was bringing in that raw shamanic kind of knowledge. And actually, I had someone email me afterwards saying it was the best thing that they did at Burning Man, which I thought was pretty amazing considering it's Burning Man. But coming back to, so that really, so after doing that session, after doing that workshop, I suddenly really tuned into the importance of the menstruation, and actually it was really, so I actually really loved my menstrual cycle. It lasted 5 days, 3 days heavy, 2 days not. And then in 2021, in February 2021, as the vaccine rollout started, and I don't know if it's connected or not, and I have no idea, my period suddenly stopped. And they just suddenly stopped. There was literally no, there was no, I had a 5-day period like I did. I bled a lot. It was a really heavy bleeding. And then that was the last period. Interestingly, it was at that time, at that period, that I made a commitment to myself that the next time I was going to sleep with someone or have a sexual connection with someone, it was going to be in a relationship. So it coincided weirdly with a very deep commitment to myself that I was going to meet my life partner and not have any more like connections that weren't going anywhere. As soon as I made that commitment, finished with all the lovers, I was like, that was it. My period stopped, and there hasn't been one person come in at all. Like, my sexual life has completely died. The spark of passion has completely died. It's been the weirdest thing. But anyway, that's a bit of a side note. And then, so I thought, oh, it's going to come, it's going to come, it's going to come. It didn't come all the way through till October 2021 was the next time I had a period. So I went through massive trauma in 2021. My father died. I had to go to Mexico. He died from coronavirus. It was super trying. I thought my period's going to come. Like, that trauma. No, it didn't come. So it was really weird that it just didn't come until October. And then I thought, okay, now I'm back on track. Nope. Then I didn't have another one until August 2022. So almost a year later. And then after that, I had another one on the solstice in 2022. And then I haven't had another one since. So, and it's been really weird because I've had no symptoms. It has just stopped. So I get a few blood flushes. The flushes have come and go, but I've been using black cohosh, really helped to manage that. At night, I'm having difficulty sleeping. I suppose that's the big one for me. But I use magnesium spray now, and that helps a lot to keep my magnesium. And I drink hot chocolate at night, so that helps with the tryptophan. And I'm taking D2. But apart from that, my brain is like, I see all these women around me that are having real issues with the menopause. I've lost weight, and my brain is pumping out. Like, so I'm so clearly thinking, I feel like my period, I was dazed and confused, and my superpower is now going to be in that I'm in the menopause. I actually feel that I've been dazed and confused while I've been going through my menstruation, and now that stopped, and now my time is now. And weirdly enough, I just think nature's funny like that. And maybe that I've been struggling with the whole hormonal thing through my periods, and now I'm kind of clear of that. I feel that I'm going to really be able to expand into my full potential. So there's a lot of negative around the perimenopause, but personally for me, I found that I'm clearer, more focused, more connected than I've ever been. And so I think everyone is going to be different, but I also think that I have been very aligned to my purpose and my path for so many years. And I'm so grateful to the shaman for putting me on my path 25 years ago, because I think I would have been some fucked up weirdo if I hadn't have at least been put on that path. I would have been lost completely on this planet if I didn't have found that shaman 25 years ago. And I'm so grateful to him. So everything that I've done has been in alignment with my truth. And I think when you hit perimenopause, you are faced with a lot of the decisions that you've made that haven't maybe been for you, because we're always in the service state. So we don't serve ourselves. And I think that the perimenopause is a time when you're suddenly in pause and you're thinking, that's it, because you hit 50. I'm 51 now. You hit 50, and it's almost like your period, your menstruation dries up. And at the same time, those dreams are drying up. So I didn't have children, right? And I think maybe that's another thing, because I made a decision, I'm not having children. That's it. It's not ever going to happen. And it was around that same time when I thought I'm going to meet the man, my partner. I'm not going to have any more children. That's done. That the period stopped. So I actually wonder whether I don't need to have periods anymore because I'm not going to have children. And so I'm so connected to my body. There is no point in producing eggs if they're not going to go anywhere. So I wonder whether that's also part of it. And not having children, it means that my body never stopped having periods. It just constantly was having periods all the time. So I might have used up my eggs a lot quicker than anyone else. who had children and had pauses over that time. I don't, to be honest with you, I don't know. It's probably something to explore, but it doesn't have to be a negative time. I hear a lot about the negativity around it. And I suppose I'm the poster girl for maybe it being something that is quite positive and something to look forward to, and it might actually be quite life changing. But I also think that if you are living your passion and doing what you're doing and loving it, you're kind of, there's a sense of almost like, okay, this is a moment of expansion. But I think it's all very personal to each and every one. So I think that everyone has a different story to tell on it.
Yeah, amazing. God.
Oh, you're on mute.
Am I on mute? No, I'm not on mute anymore. Yeah, I mean, am I on mute? Can you hear me? Yeah.
I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me. I think I'm off mute.
Oh,
maybe your volume's down.
I can hear you now. Sorry, it was my
Oh my God, sign me up for your style of perimenopause and menopause, please. That I'm all that sounds amazing. And then so this evening we're going to be talking about like the lunar cycles and cyclical living. And so you're so connected in with the moon. You do your lunar scope every month. So can we dive into that and yeah, what you wanted to share around it?
Okay, so I'll tell you a little bit about how I got into it. So I was living in South London, deep in South London, and a friend of mine started to do moon circles, a little moon circle just for a few friends, and it was on the new moon, usually on the new moon, sometimes on the full moon. And I also have to say I was going through quite a difficult time. And I just so looked forward to these moon circles just to have some time to just tune into the moon. But it was really what I'm calling now sacred time, sacred time out where I could just be with a group of women and guided and start following the moon. So I started doing that. And then she left the country, but it had stayed like the moon. So I started becoming much more aware of the moon cycles. And then I started talking about it to people. Oh, it's the new moon today. Oh, it's the full moon. So a few of them saying, where can I read up about it? And I looked, and of course there was nothing. So I thought, oh, maybe I'll write a little moon message. So I started to do one. I remember it was Gemini full moon 2006. I remember it like it was yesterday. So I got an email list together and I just set out one of my moon musings, and that was it. That's how it started. And I think I've missed one or two moons since 2006. So, and actually it's changed my life because I'm quite chaotic in that I'm chaotic and order at the same time. I've got a lovely blend of everything. But for me, I don't get the Gregorian calendar. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, the dates don't relate to anything. There's no energy around them. I just can't get the Gregorian calendar. So I use the moon as my calendar, and it keeps me in tune, connected to everything that's happening. I know everything that's happening every 2 weeks. So for me, it's like a pointer. So if I have to write essays and do things and have timelines, the moon is a fantastic measurement for me. So I can check, okay, I've got 3 full moons until this essay deadline has to be in, for example. Or, okay, it's new moon, and on this new moon, then this is happening. And so it has been amazing. I clean my sheets every 2 weeks on the new moon. On the new moon, I do a big clean out on the full moon. I use the moon now in my daily life. When I look and think, oh my God, it's almost new moon. Okay, so where I'm at, it is a fantastic way of keeping in tune with the natural flow of nature. Because right now, time is wonky. We're just in a wonky time frame. Like some days go really slow. Some days go really fast. I mean, can you believe it's already the 25th of May? Where has May gone? So for me, that's quite scary because I also juggle a lot and do a lot. So the moon keeps me on track. And also, not only the moon, but also the 8 festivals of the Celtic calendar. So Imbolc, Beltane, Lammas, Samhain, and then the 4 cross quarters festivals. Because Imbolc is the beginning of spring. It is in February, and everyone thinks February is in the dead of winter. but it isn't actually. It's the very beginning of spring, and you start seeing the spring flowers come up. So we are now, Beltane is really the beginning of summer, but everyone thinks summer's in August, but actually the beginning of August is autumn. So we miss the long nights that are happening now between May and June and coming into July. Now, May is fantastic for the long evenings. But because people think, oh, it's only the beginning of spring, then they don't actually, even though they can see the sunlight, aren't connecting in. Oh my God, it's like, this is the beginning of summer. This is how lush everything, how abundant everything, how fertile everything is. Because literally come June the 21st, it starts getting dark again. And we've completely lost that. So we kind of wait until, summer's coming in August, and we've missed the fact that this is the moment of the long days, the short nights, the warmer temperatures. And so when you start getting in tune with the actual nature herself, you start becoming much more in tune with your own with your own natural rhythms, and so you start enjoying it all a lot more, the nature around. So you're much more in tune with it. So the abundance, the fertility, the vitality of being out in nature right now, you can kind of feel it inside of you. Whereas a lot of people are almost suppressing it because to them it's still only spring, and summer is coming much later down in the line at the end of July, which is when the summer holidays are. But in Europe, the summer holidays are in June. It's only England that's so totally out of whack with it all, that we have our holidays so late. So for me, these cross-quarter festivals also really help to ground the energy of the land and the energy of what's happening in the nature around us. And that then helps with my own projects. Like, I know that the best, if you're doing anything now, like putting together a project, wait till September to harvest it. There is no when I was writing my first book, I saw September 2004 as the time to publish it, but in July it was finished, and I thought, I could rush it out in July and get it out. But actually I waited until September, and of course in September is the time of the harvest, and in that period between July and September there was so much that changed for that book, that actually wasn't really, it looked like it was ready in July, but it wasn't. It was really ready in September. And had I not have been in tune with the harvest and all of that, I might have tried to push the project too quickly. And, Tesla said something very interesting. He said, a project is only as powerful as the time it's released. If it goes out too early, it gets killed by the frost. And that has always really stayed with me, because unfortunately for Tesla, his ideas were too early, and they got killed by the frost. And so I really relate myself to nature. I see myself as part of nature. Someone a while ago, years ago, someone came to me and goes, "Oh my God, you're a cork tree." I said, "What do you mean, a cork tree?" And she said, "Oh yeah, do you know about cork?" And I said, "No, tell me." And she said, "Well, cork takes 12 to 14 years to grow, but once it creates enough cork, you can harvest it every year and it never stops producing cork. But it takes 14 years. So some people are apple trees. They produce every year. They're really abundant. So some people are olive trees. They go on forever. Some people, we all relate to a tree. And I really like that analogy, that, I'd love to be an apple tree, but it doesn't quite, I'm not. I think I'm much more of a cork tree, something that's taking a long time to, prepare in order for the cork to be harvested, in order for the produce to be harvested. So it's kind of like, what tree are you? Because if you're a tree, you can't cry that you're not a mango tree. If you're a cork tree, you are what you are in your nature. So it's really also able to then surrender. Okay, that's what I'm like. I can't fight nature. So comparison with somebody else it doesn't serve at all, because you're a different tree. The trees don't compare themselves to each other, and neither must we. So it's really about acknowledging our inner gifts, and that maybe our fruits are coming later on down the line and we can't see them yet. And that really helps us to understand how and why things are happening, maybe to ourselves and to other people differently. And that's really helped me on my journey to understanding. So I started these these lunar scopes. Obviously it's grown and grown and grown. Weirdly enough, now everywhere there's a lunar scope and everyone is doing moon moon musings, and the moon has become a massive influence for a lot of people. But for me, I guess I was told that I couldn't monetize it. That actually is, I it's a download. It is a proper download from the moon, and it comes when it comes, and it can come at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's really powerful, and it's, I always say I'm not doing it next month. I'm closing the lunar scope. I'm not doing it. It's too much pressure. I'm not doing it. And you know what? I always end up doing it, even if I've got the most maddest heavy schedule. Somehow the moon gets her time with me, and I get her time with the moon. And I've realized that if I was asked to do it, if I had to do it, if I was monetized to do it, I wouldn't be able to do it, because it would be a pressure to have to produce something. And by not having the pressure, by just being naturally in the flow of the moon, I feel like she downloads, and I feel like I need to send her message out. And that's why I don't publicize it or publish it or anything, because if I suddenly felt I had to do it, or I had to offer the moon, I think that that magic would go. And it really is a magic, and I love it. And I feel like whoever needs the wisdom can find the wisdom, and it's a wisdom, but it's me for, also for me, because actually when I write the lunar scope, I'm actually really writing about me. I don't, and I've tried to personalize it, but it's not felt right to make it personal. So it's kind of like generic, but it's not really. So now you know. And also I pick up on what people are telling me. You know, I help a lot of people, and a lot of people to call me and talk to me, and so I kind of, you know, pick up on the energy of how other people are going about it. And you know, it's funny because 2006, that's a lot of moons I've written about, and it's the same moon. It's the same moon every year, every month. I actually don't know how I rehash it all the time differently, but it's different every single it's different every 2 weeks, and I can't explain how I write it. So it has to be magic. There has to be magic, otherwise I would just run out of. So it really is the moon communing with me. I actually, no doubt, I think about it, and I'm going to go for as long as the magic's there. And as soon as the magic dries up, then it stops. But it hasn't since 2006, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure it will. But it's been amazing because it's kept me in tune with people you know, that I have been following my lunoscopes for years and years and years and years, and I get messages from people, from like random messages every now and then through the lunoscope, saying, "Oh, I do like your lunoscope." So it's kept me in the consciousness of people. And in 2006, I planted so many seeds, loads of seeds, and they all went bankrupt in 2010, except for the lunoscope. The lunoscope is the only thing, the only seed that survived that nuclear holocaust that happened in 2011. In 2010, when I lost everything, the lunoscope survived it, and it's the only one that's been really flourishing ever since then. All the other projects died, but that one kept on going. So I'm very grateful for my friend who've been doing the moon circles all those years ago to what it birthed in since then. And then of course the moon cycles and my menstruation, falling on the moon cycles, because it very often, because I was so in tune, fell on the new moon or the full moon. And in the moon cup really does help also with that connection. And on the solstices are usually, you know, big. And then I recognized how my moon cycles really changed around like the solstices, or like if I was going to do a vipassana, my period would start the day I started my vipassana. So also big shamanic changes or things that you're going to be doing, then sometimes my period would come even a week or 2 weeks early, to kind of attune to those big shifts and changes that were happening. So I totally loved my moon cycle, because it really helped me be in tune. So I'm now kind of in a bit of a discombobulated state, because I don't know if my period's going to come, but I don't have any discharge. It's just literally stopped, but without it, I've no pain, nothing like that. And so actually I'm just, I'm not, I think with menopause, you don't have a period for 12 months. I think that's the mention of menopause. So I'm still in that, waiting to see how it unfolds. But yeah, basically that's how and tuning into the moon has been an incredible, powerful part of that.
Oh my God, I love this. It's so fascinating, because I find that I have for the last few years launched projects on Beltane, but around the Beltane tide without even knowing it. Like I launched my book in 2019 and I just happened to look on some photos and it was like the 1st of May and I was like, whoa, okay. And then I last year I had Beltane fertility rites that I was doing and a retreat, and then this year again with the oils, like I had to get it out this week. It was like I just couldn't have another date. It was really, really like the strongest thing, even though I just ran a retreat on the weekend that finished on Sunday, and then I had to do this. So it's like that feeling of something inside of you when you are connected with nature. And for me, it's not like a thinking one where I'm like thinking right on this date because of this thing. It's like an internal must happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look back and you are in tune, it will naturally fall on those dates. Like when I booked my ayahuasca retreats, I never do it on the moon, but it was last year, it was so mad because I did a dieta and I did a 5-day water fast with a dieta with a tree called Ayauma, 40-meter tree, and you drink the bark. And then on the 6th day, you do the ayahuasca. And on the 6th day, it was when I flew to the Amazon. I'm sorry, when I flew to Mexico to be with my father on the when he was dying. And then on the day that he died, I was doing ayahuasca with my group, and it was all these kind of like a year later how my Peru trip had so synced with my Mexico trip the year before, my traumatic process the year before, just shamanically without having to plan it. So when you are naturally in the flow, you are naturally planning it anyway. It's just sometimes we're not conscious about it. And weirdly enough, my dad died. He got sick in the first Aquarius moon. I flew out on the Leo new moon, and my dad died on the 2nd Aquarius full moon. And actually, I'm so grateful for the moon because it gave it meaning and synchronicity and a container that I could hold, that my dad, during these 2 Aquarius new moons with the age of Aquarius coming through in this huge portal, he died in between that, gave it some synchronistic, powerful meaning for me rather than some random, situation that happened that didn't have any kind of, meaning to it. And so when you start working with it, suddenly life has a lot more meaning. And you can really anchor into that meaning. And for me, it has really kept me, I suppose, grounded on planet Earth, because let's be honest, it's so bonkers down here. It's completely crazy down here. That for me, it's been the only thing that's really helped me ground. I mean, the Gregorian calendar and time is designed to bamboozle us. Every single indigenous culture and religion use the moon as their calendar. And they've come along and totally bamboozled us with this Gregorian calendar. We're totally out of sync with Mother Earth and nature and the natural flows of nature. And that's why I think there's so much sickness, so much old age, so much disconnect, is because our calendar just is totally taken us out of a natural flow. And so we don't have these understandings of timing and the meanings and purpose and reasons for why things are happening. And so everything's just a random sets of circumstances that are happening. And so we've lost that sacred connection and that sacred magic. And without that kind of life force energy isn't there. And I think when we have that life force energy, when we live in that life force energy, it's what feeds us. And that's, I think, what keeps us vibrant and strong and energized. And I mean, I've been living like this for a very, very long time. And I can really now start seeing the benefits because, like I said, I see a lot of my contemporaries completely falling apart in their 50s. And I'm absolutely metamorphosizing into a butterfly right now. So, there you go.
Well, listen, like, teach us how to connect to the moon. We all want to know. Give us a 101 connecting to the moon.
I mean, first of all, when it's the new moon, it's a really time for silence and to go inward a little bit and set your intentions. Where do you want to go this month? What do you want to do this month? What are you seeding this month? When it comes to the full moon, where am I in this full moon? Am I where are my projects at this full moon? How far have they come into fertility? Now, look, some projects take years and years and years to come to fruition. Some are much shorter, but there's things on the way where you can kind of gauge where you're at, what's needed. Like the balance, I did a 3-day balance festival this weekend, and it was on the new moon. So on the new moon, I closed my, I sat down, I set my intention of what I wanted over the new moon, what I wanted for the balance. And then you've got to let life do its thing. But I think I think also healthy eating very much as well, eating plant-based foods, not eating, processed. I don't eat tin food. I don't eat frozen food. I, I don't really eat any dairy products or meat products. I'm pretty much a vegan. So for me, I think also I don't eat anything packaged. I try not to anyway. So I think it's a lot alongside that, but most importantly, what's your service to Mother Earth? What's your service? How are you living your service? Are you in loving what you do and doing what you love? Because when we feed that, we get fed up, we get fed from that service. And I think it's very tough now, and to be on this planet and just make it for the money, because it's that dream no longer really holds any kind of strength to it. It's kind of an illusion. So now more and more people are feeling a calling from their heart to, step in. And actually, this is the only time in the history of humanity that women can be whoever they want to be. Actually, we are the freest that we have ever been, however much we feel we're enslaved. It's a weird dichotomy, because I can be a shaman, I'm not married, I don't have any children, I'm economically viable, I go where I want, I wear what I want, I do what I want, I say what I want, obviously within reason. But 20 years ago, even 50 years ago, I would have been scary. I would have been a spinster, but I that is all gone now. And I can actually stand really in my power, being true to who I am. And I don't think any woman in history has been able to do that for thousands of years. So even though there's a lot of talk about how we're still kind of stuck in the patriarchy, it's a bit like the elephant. I don't know if you know about the baby elephant, but if you tie a baby elephant to a tree trunk when it's younger, as it grows older, it still feels that it's tied to the tree trunk, even though as an adult elephant, it could just pull the chain and rip or pull the tree trunk out. It still feels stuck, like it's still stuck as a child, chained to that tree. And I think we're a bit like that. We've got the freedoms now, but we're still chained psychically to the idea that we don't have that freedom and we can't speak our truth. And you are now starting to see that breaking down, but it's going to take, I think, one more generation, maybe the generation behind us. You're seeing some of these, like my nieces are 13, and my goodness, I wasn't like that when I was 12 or 13, I'm telling you. They are sassy, they know what they want, they know what they want to wear, they know who they are, they're incredibly talented, that they go to every single after school club that's ever existed. It's amazing, and they're just totally in their bodies, and I think good, they're the ones that are going to come up really owning this freedom. And I think we're what I would call the immigrants. We are the last generation that are in between those two, that are breaking out the patriarchy and actually starting to understand that we have the freedom. And the kids that are growing up actually know that they have that freedom, and that's very exciting. So I'm seeing more women now stepping into that leadership role, which is going back to the beginning of the chat, is that leadership role that I'm seeing more women stepping into now and owning, and that is very exciting. That women can have that space now to step up and not feel that they're going to be humiliated or pushed down. And that is why also you're seeing a lot of the spiritual men like really let's be honest, it's an epidemic of proportions of what's going on in the scandals of spiritual male gurus. And I think with that collapsing of the image of what a spiritual guru is, there's a real space for women to step up into proper leadership here. Because let's be honest, women aren't doing it to, they're not having to suppress their sexual energy, because they're in natural service. So you're not going to get that same kind of sexual predatorship with female leadership. It's just a totally different thing. Like, and I know this because I've been doing female leadership stuff. If I'm in an ayahuasca ceremony and there's a guy puking his guts out and shitting out and going, I'm not going to go and shag him the next day. It's just not going to happen. That it's just that isn't, that isn't, what's the word, that that isn't enticing to me. But for men who kind of feel that they want to protect, they can kind of mix up those messages, whereas for a woman it's just not going to happen, because we're in service to help that person reach their potential. So it's just, I find that the energy is completely different energy when women come into leadership and men come into leadership.
Wow, amazing. Thank you, Rebeka. Woo, so much. Oh my God, love it. So much, just so much to digest and so much to think about. And I just want to draw us back to the cyclical living. And like, so your top tips for cyclical living is following the moon. And then what would be your practice? And like, could you take us through just like a little short practice to like energetically connect to the moon if somebody hasn't connected to the moon before?
Yeah, sure. So look, I do have a moon membership if you're interested. It's called Living Shamanically, and we do a new or full moon meditation or guided visualization, communing with the moon once a month. And I started it because I realized how important it is to tune into the moon on a monthly basis, whether it's in the new moon or the full moon, and it just puts us back on track. So it's a really good marker for throughout the year. And then I also do a shamanic forecast at the beginning of the month to give an idea of what's coming next for the month, and how to read the month and how to utilize the month, because every month has its own vibration as well. And that really also helps to kind of get an understanding of what's going to come up this month. And the moon really helps us energetically to work out what we're working through this month as well. So, I mean, a really good one is there's two ways of doing it, really. On the full moon, I go out, take my shoes and socks off, walk barefoot on the ground, always. I mean, I'm not even going to show you, my feet are disgusting tonight, because I walk barefoot as soon as I'm in the park. And it is so good to feel that grass underneath your feet. And then and then I do it at night, and the full moon's there, and I open my head, like I imagine a hole opening, and just imagining those golden silver rays just flowing through my body and just flowing around my body, and just tuning into the feminine energy of the moon, and then just tuning into my heart and just opening up and saying, what messages do you have for me? Like, what do I need to know for this moon cycle? Is there any messages coming through that could help me on this journey? Or if I have a specific question, just asking, just tuning into Mother Earth, feeling the electromagnetic energy just pouring up through my body, feeling the moon down, connecting to the cosmos, feeling that flow of energy between the cosmos and the earth, and just opening myself up and saying, okay, like, what messages are coming through, and becoming that channel both for the Mother Earth energy and for the moon energy. And it is really it's really cleansing, especially if you can really you're really, like, some days you won't be able to, but some moons you're going to be tuned in massively to that moon, especially if it's a super moon. And it's amazing what comes up. It's really amazing, the messages and the energies. Also, if you tune into my lunoscope, I give a ritual on how to tune into the moon. So every new moon and full moon, there's a ritual. Sometimes they're repeated, sometimes they're new, but they're very much about how to connect into the energy of the moon that month, and the new moon and the full moon. So once you start doing it, again, it's just listening to what nature is telling us and guiding us. When we start tuning in, it's amazing how everything's so synchronistic and magical. We are living on a magical planet. There is no doubt in my mind that this is a magical planet, but we are so limited by our five senses, and we have been so deadened to that magic. And I really do feel plant medicines have enabled me to open up to the magic by tuning me back into nature, but also with meditation, with the integration of that. So two arms of my bird has been Vipassana meditation and plant medicines. And I think you can, you can do the plant medicines, do all the shamanic stuff, but without some silent integration and deep meditation, you can't really put it into full-time practice. Because I see a lot of people going to a lot of workshops, doing a lot of stuff, and they're just getting too saturated with information. And actually integration, silence, getting clear that you know where you are, clearing yourself out enables you to fill up. And I just see too many people, and they're actually too full, and they really need to stop and empty. And in the emptiness, they can start filling up. And the emptiness is really just releasing everything and making sure that you've integrated everything that you've learned, because pretty much we know it all. There isn't much new under the sun. We just don't give ourselves that time to integrate. And we always think someone else knows better than us. Oh, I got to go to this workshop, or this person knows more. But actually, if you just tuned in, the answers are all inside. I really think the age of the guru is over. I think each one of us has to become fully empowered in our own intuition and in our wisdom in order to make the changes that are needed on the planet right now. And that is, for me, tuning into the moon, tuning into the natural cycles of the moon, using your oils, on your own cycles, things like that are tuning people in on a regular basis. You're going to naturally start listening to your own inner wisdom, getting into your own and becoming your own empowered guru. And I think that that's where we need to be going. Each one of us needs to be awakening as a conscious being. And we've seen with the amount of scandalous things that are happening with our spiritual leaders, there's problems in that archetype. And the problem is that actually we're putting so much onto them and expecting them to be gods, and they're not. They're humans, and we're all human. And when we get that level playing field, that's when we can really start feeling empowered, stop giving us our empowerment away to others, and start remembering our own empowerment. And actually, that's why, for me, leadership is about giving people the empowerment to be their own inner leader. That, for me, is true leadership. If it's about wanting a huge following, forget it. I always say to people, if they say, "Oh, can I be your apprentice and everything?" I'm like, I'm on a mission for Mother Earth. That's my mission. I'm on a mission for cacao, cannabis, and Mother Earth. I'm not here to be leading people. I'm on my own mission. If you want to follow me and learn from me, that's fine. But I'm not here for you. I'm not here. I don't have the answers for you. You have to find your own inner answers. And that, I think, is pure leadership, because I'm doing my mission for what I need to be doing, and supporting others to find their missions, and giving them the tools that I'm using to help them find their own. And I think that is where we're all needing to be, to step up in the leadership roles, each one of us. Mm-hmm. And when we do that, I think the world can change very quickly once we start doing that.
Beautiful. I love that. Oh, and does anyone have any questions? Rebeka shared so much. Did any questions come up that you felt like you wanted to ask? And Rebeka, whilst having a little think, so you did the full moon connection, opening the crown. As you were saying that, I could feel it all happening. I was like, oh yeah, that feels so good. That feels good. And then when it's the dark moon or the new moon, would you do the same practice, or you do something?
No. If it's the dark moon, then it's in silence. So, I mean, you can go out in your garden, but it is really much more, rather than being actively flowing with the moon, it's going deep into the silence of the heart and just tuning in and just being in that very still space and hearing what's coming up. So rather than going out actively to ask for the messages and everything, you're just going into the stillness of where you're at right now and feeling that calmness within Mother Earth and the cosmos. Because, lunatics comes from the word lunar, because people go, the energy of the moon does affect us vibrationally. Of course, we're 70% water, and the moon controls the tides. So the moon is going to have a massive and is having more of a connection with us as all the veils start breaking down. So the full moon is a really good one to go out and really tune in, but the new moon is one to be able to really go into the silence and do some journaling, and just, what am I intentionalizing for this month? What, what am I seeding? And that kind of thing, and just finding that those silent moments. It doesn't have to be very long, but it's just becoming much more aware that the new moon is a time, and that's usually when we menstruate, is on the new moon, because in the olden days you would be separated from the men, and you'd be 3 days in a tent, in a red tent, bleeding basically, and being unclean, being seen as unclean. But actually that was the sacred space for the women. But it's over the new moon when it's quiet and silent, and in the full moon, that's when you're out celebrating and partying and that kind of thing. So yeah, there's a definite energy shifts between the new moon and the full moon.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing, Rebeka. Oh my God, just so much. My whole mind.
No questions out there? Oh, I love a question. No questions.
Any questions, anyone? Any questions?
I don't have a question, but I did just want to say, I did your coffee to cacao in 2020. And I've been drinking cacao ever since, and it's amazing, and such a wonderful thing that you brought into my life during lockdown, etc. And I just wanted to say,
oh, thank you so much. I'm really grateful that you shared that. That's really, because sometimes you don't know where it goes. And so it's lovely.
Yeah. I've been a member of your Living Shamanically as well. I do all of it. Like, I love it. It's really, really helped me evolve, etc.
I love that. It's brilliant that you've come on board, and thank you so much for sharing, Rebeka. And that you're on the journey with me. It does feel like that. And actually, this transition, when you go through this, I have to say, this not having my period has been massive. Losing my dad's been massive, and it's all happened all at the same time, which also feels very synchronistic. But I do feel like something's about this year now. It does feel that this year there's big movements happening, seismic movements happening internally for people who have kind of been on the journey. So I think, watch this space over the summer. I think it's going to be very exciting. I feel quite excited for those that have kind of been doing the work. There's going to be some big changes happening, and look, people say to me, what's going to happen? I say, Mother Earth's got something up her sleeve. Totally trust it. You never know. She's magic. So I feel something's brewing, but not like the coronavirus. Something really quite magical is brewing, and I feel that if you're in tune, we're all going to really benefit from it in a massive way. And actually, since I've been in perimenopause, I've been feeling a lot more hopeful than I did when I was in menstruation. So yeah, it's something to look forward to. I don't know how many of you are in perimenopause or like still getting your periods, but I really want you to, if I leave you with one thing, is to really honor your menstruation cycle, because it is really a powerful, cyclical connection to Mother Earth and nature. And when it goes, when you look back, it's kind of like, oh, wow. These were formative years of my life. And as you hit 50 and you realize that, you're not young anymore, and that actually you want to be sure that you've kind of done what you've kind of honored that cycle and that menstruation, so that you can almost grieve them going in a way where it's kind of like, oh yeah, well, I had that was amazing, and now because I think that's a lot what menopause is, that women are suddenly realizing, oh my God, my periods have stopped, and they never really honored them. And we don't have a culture of honoring our menstruation cycles. So, this is a real time to honor them, so that when you no longer have them, that you've enjoyed them while you've had them. And that's what I've learned a lot. Don't hold on to anything, because it goes. So honor everything. Every day is a celebration. Every day is a blessing. And once it's gone, it's gone. And so you might as well enjoy every day, because tomorrow is going. So yeah, to enjoy every day, celebrate every day. That's why I wear glitter, to remind me that every day is a celebration.
I love that. Someone asked me, they were like, so what are your plans for the summer? And I was like, my plans are living my best life this summer.
Yes, I love that intention. The best intention. My one is to find my clown, my inner clown. That is my intention. I'm going to go out and I'm going to find my inner clown, because my mother was quite strict, let's just put it that way. So I never really dressed up or got silly. And this summer, my intention is to be very silly.
Oh, I love it. If anyone else has their summer intention, pop it in the chat.
Yeah.
And then we're just going to close out now. And just before we do, which was your favorite oil, Rebecca? Which of the seasons did you like the best, did you think?
Of course, the winter.
The winter, yeah, yours.
Well, I'm going into winter phase, aren't I now? I'm going into the crone air, even though I don't feel crone. I feel better than I did when I was 18, like, let me tell you. But yeah, initially I'm going into the crone, but yeah, the winter. And actually I came back from the Balance Festival, and it'd been like a crazy well, and I had 150 people, and your box was there because it came while I was in Balance, and I opened it, and my friend made a little mix with me and then massaged me here and here and here and here, and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. This is amazing. It really came back into my body, and I'm like, oh my god, it came at the right time. It was perfect. So it was so nice just to get back into my body. Yeah. Oh, I love that, Rebecca. Yes, stepping into your goddess energy.
My summer intention is to be in flow and fully step into my goddess energy.
Me too. I'm adding that to being silly and being the clown. Stepping into the goddess energy. Absolutely. I love that.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, all of you beautiful women, for joining us. And thank you, all of those that have been watching the replays as well. This is the final one of our My Muse series just within this week, but don't you worry, because I'm planning to hold these talks, I don't know how many times a month. Maybe from this conversation it will be on the dark moon and the full moon, and
definitely should be.
yeah, because I felt like every week felt like a bit too much for me, but every 2 weeks feels okay. And so we'll be continuing these, because really my deep prayer around my moon power, and this has always been, is that it's a place for education as well. And so it's a place that we're learning about menarche, that we're learning about menstruation, that we're learning about hormones, that we're learning about perimenopause and menopause, but then also really, and this is another bit that I haven't done this week, but I intend to bring in, is to talk to men that honor the menstrual cycle and how they've worked with their partners, so that that information can be shared with other men as well. Because anytime I'm with a man that is interested in this, I'm like, blah, and like tell them the whole, I'm like, right, do you want the download? Are you ready? And I give them the whole thing, and they literally come away and they're like, oh, my life makes so much more sense now. So
I think that's really important. Actually, I think that is essential. And that would be amazing to do men's groups on menstruation cycles and hormonal stuff. And, you know, that is a beautiful that would be a beautiful offering to give, for sure.
Yeah. So we will keep in touch with you all, and we'll keep sharing, or keep being in this space of education and empowerment and inspiration. This is really my true wish, is that we all come away from this feeling lit up and feeling inspired and feeling creative as well.
Oh, thank you all so much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate seeing you online for our chat. Thanks so much, Chloe, for inviting me. I love your oils. They are beautiful. They are great, girls. I would really, you know, if you really want to get into your moon cycle, the oils are also a really fantastic way of honoring yourself, self-care and self-love. Super important. And sacred time on the moon. If you forget for the rest of the month, but on the new moon and full moon, to honor yourself at that sacred time, these moons are a really great way to tune into that. So, or join my moon membership as well, and then you can do all of it together.
Absolutely. Okay, sending you all so much love. Bye.
Love. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Rebecca.